Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to The Intentional Creator. My name is Dean and I'm joined here with Jackson Thomas, and we're here to speak about some intentional creator and creativity going ons and happenings. Wow, that was a terrible start. I don't know what happened there, but we're going to roll with it. It's fine. It's early in the morning. We're just having our cups of coffee. But yeah, today we're going to be speaking about how to measure success as a creative. I think this is a very important topic that almost every creative needs to have a conversation about at some point in their careers.
Yeah.
I know for both of us it's starting to come up right now, and we're really starting to rethink about what it really means to be a successful creator. And yeah, really getting clear on that, getting clear on the why. It's kind of everything we've spoken about in the previous episodes. But yeah, we're really going to be doubling down on the success part of it. Like, how do you know when you're successful as a creative?
How can you reorient that from an intentional space? And that word is so charged with capitalistic ideals in a lot of ways. And how can you like reorient it to where it's like not, it can have that aspect, but can also have this other aspect of your relationship to creativity is just flourishing and blossoming and feeling really energizing to you. And both of those components are alive in that conversation of success. It's not just you're successful in the modern business way, but you're also successful in the sense of like balance with your life and your friends and your family and your like time off of social media. Like all those have a realm to play in this conversation and are needed to be talked about because it's so oversaturated these days.
Yeah, I think it starts off by thinking about what do you envision? Like, what is your vision of the future where you have your ideal setup, your ideal world as a creative? What does that look like for you? And starting to get really clear on that. So I'm interested, what does the ideal future look like for you as a creative?
It always comes back to clarity. My ideal future for creativity it's honestly the same thing that we've kind of been talking about with where this might want to go and desires to go, in the sense of having a studio, having a creative studio or business that runs and has a specific story / vision of the stories that it wants to tell, documentaries, stories on regenerative agriculture, stories on people doing innovative things in a grounded and holistic way. Those are the stories that I like to tell. But having a studio, having a crew of people who are aligned with that vision, who are aligned with that message and those messages, and being selective and intentional about how we're picking and how we're choosing those kind of production creative stories that we're telling. Really, for me, it comes back to, the vision I have with my creativity on my visual side is the stories that I'm getting to express and the stories that I'm telling, and really feeling aligned with those and really feeling aligned with what I'm showing up in and how I'm showing up in those stories. And also definitely integrating adventure and traveling again and all those sorts of like fun things to do as a human, and bringing a little bit more of the humanness of myself into those things instead of maybe just like the brand of who I have presented myself to be into those things. I'm really going to have some adventures and document and observe along the way. That's like the creativity visual side of it as a photographer, as a filmmaker. That would be the ideal vision of like having that crew and that kind of intentional story base, and then going out and telling those stories and hoping to share those stories. And then beyond that, I think it's actually grown more towards, my creativity has grown more towards like a business side of things, where I've created passive income streams and I've created a structure outside of my creative work to help support the container of that creative work, so that I can be doing and telling the stories that I want to be sharing and want to be expressing. And that's been a really interesting flip for me right now, because it's kind of had me take my foot off the gas when it comes to my visual creativity and put on the gas in the sense of some other skills that I need to develop, getting back into really business minded books and developing different structures to figure out where I want to go in the sense of those passive income streams and how I want to create that funnel to create that container and create that space so that I can go tell the stories that I really crave to tell.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, both of that business structure has come out of this intentional conversation that we're having of like, oh, I really actually want to be intentional with the creativity I'm doing and not just have to take whatever comes down my way to pay for rent and pay for my expenses. How can I actually develop more skills so that I can use those skills to help funnel more time and more space and more mental capacity into the creativity that I want to share and the creativity that I want to output. So that's my vision, and that's what I'm really doubling down on right now in my life. There's a lot of things shifting for me and really doubling down into that kind of focused attention towards that production of those two silos in my life to hold the stories that I want to tell by creating the business. And I think this also just comes with getting older. You know, I'm 26 now, just turned 26 in July, and so I'm getting older and recognizing that there's more to life than just being successful and having attention and wanting more groundedness and wanting more stability, and also watching where the state of the world is and trying to navigate how creativity looks through all of that, and how can I create through this journey that we're going through on a global scale while also helping to create stability for the things that might come, the things that are coming, that kind of thing, and making sure that I'm feeling stable and set up to be able to like have a family still one day and be able to provide for them and all those sorts of things. So I think it's a little bit of both, the intentional creativity coming online in this conversation and also just growing up in life and maturity as we get older as men.
Yeah, I think you're already super clear on what your vision is and what you want out of it. So that's an amazing start. So like measuring that afterwards is going to be a relatively easy step. And then once you have those figures, you can create like goals out of it. And then you're like, okay, I know when I have a studio, I can do this. Or I have X amount of employees or people that I work with, like I've reached this goal. Yeah, kind of another point. I want to get back to your vision and your goals, because I think it's a nice exercise to like show the vision and then going to like how to measure that. But I just wanted to touch on the topic of,
but I want to hear yours too, your like creative vision.
I mean, mine is actually very similar to yours. It's almost identical actually. Like I was hearing, and obviously that's why we're super aligned and like why we have these conversations.
Right.
But I'm like, everything you said, I'm like, yep, check. That's the same thing I want.
Well, I wanted to touch it because I know that, but like seeing if there's anything else you were trying to add or anything else you were trying to bring to the table. But what do you? We'll go to that one point you were going to go make.
No, so the point I wanted to make is like I was saying, you are super clear and like very intentional about what you want your vision and your focus as a creator to be. I wanted to touch on the point of, what do you think conventional success looks like as a creator nowadays? I think especially coming from our background and like seeing people on YouTube and Instagram, and like I'm thinking about people like, and this is kind of, I guess it's being judgy a little bit, but thinking about people like Jay Alvarez and Sam Calder and like that whole like that world that happened. I know they've both evolved and become their own humans now and like grown into what they are meant to be doing. So I'm like, I'm not trying to be judgmental at all. But there was a certain period of time where they set the standard for like what a successful internet, not even internet, just like creative in in 2024 is. And it's just with TikTok, with Instagram, with like the way that people can get quote unquote successful so quickly nowadays. Like what do you think conventional success looks like as a creator nowadays, even compared to the past, as like before?
Well, it's funny how like
exist.
Because
I'm thinking about people like Andy Warhol, for example, that obviously super famous artist, Basquiat. And I think the thing that defined these artists as being really successful was, I mean, first of all, their work sold for a lot of money. They were monetarily very valuable in their work. Second of all, they had media attention. So they were in the eye of the world, in the eye of the media, and people knew who they were. And I think that same kind of story, and I guess you could say the same with like Hollywood directors and filmmakers and even certain photographers. There was that public eye around them, which was obviously a lot harder in a way to get back in the day. So it was almost more prized to like be in that celebrity role, especially as an artist. But I think that same thing has carried over to the social media world now, where a lot of quote unquote success is based off how many followers you have, how famous you are essentially, and like how much you are in the public eye, despite if you're happy with the work you're creating, what kind of work you're creating, if you're fulfilled in what you're doing, if you have a good work-life balance, like all these other kind of things.
Or if it's just for clout,
so I find it really interesting to see how social media and the internet has shaped and defined what success means for a creative nowadays.
Well, I think that the funny thing, I think that Jay Alvarez and Sam Kolder was the first of the quote unquote Gen Z generation, and that I know they're not Gen Z, but like in the sense of like the younger generation coming online and finding a new avenue into the public eye than the older generation had been able to tap into, right? Obviously, because the internet wasn't around. And so really they were just the first people who found their rhythm in it. They just found their rhythm in the algorithm, and they found their rhythm in how they showed up, and they're selling this idea, they're selling this fantasy, they're selling this story of this kind of dream world that people want to go live in. And it's just like, wow, like this is such a beautiful experience of this person's life and whatnot. And I think that if that's coming from an authentic place within them, and if it was coming from an authentic place with them, I think beautiful, run it. Like that's your experience, and that's what you created out of it, and that's amazing. And like you became successful through it, and that's awesome. I think what's disorienting about that is the fact that there's like a lot of Hollywood, there's a lot of these still kind of like not in integrity people who are showing up to that creative space now, either trying to copy and paste it or trying to come off of that kind of story that other people are telling and doing that in their own life instead of finding their own story and finding their own vision.
I think that's a really important point. I think assumption can also define success in a culture. So what I mean by this is a lot of people could have looked at Jay Alvarez and seen him traveling the world, seeing him all these beautiful places, being a creative, getting to do whatever he wants, and just assuming that he's successful. Like from the outside, it looks like he is, but he might not be successful in his own definition of success. But from the outside, people assume that as a collective, and that all informs the collective definition of what success is. And therefore people chase that version of success, even though that's not what he might define success as. I feel like that's getting pretty philosophical, but assumption defines success, in a way, it's which is so weird.
Yeah. And in a way that there's a lot of these like, it's so funny how this conversation is like, it's just about social media, but there's actually so much philosophical, like human law embedded in these conversations, because a lot of the stuff that Jay Alvarez and Sam Kolder and a lot of those early adopters of like YouTube specifically were sharing was just like some basic primal instinctual things of like, I want to go live in a beautiful world, in a beautiful life. I want to go have beautiful partners in my life. I want to go have beautiful and fun experiences and like have fun and play. Like that's just the inner child in all of us who grew up and became an adult and is just like, wow, how else can I play in all these different realms? And so in a way, that version of success will never change. No matter what and how you're showing up online, like if you kind of have those themes, like that's gonna be deemed as successful. If you've got the money to kind of go do those experiences and have that experience and share that kind of lifestyle, that's gonna have this feeling of successful. And if you know how to use the algorithm and if you know how to show up online, you'll probably gain traction. You'll probably gain followers of some sort, because that's just like a human desire at some point.
Yeah,
but I think the thing about that is the fact that there are that desire is self-serving. Like, I mean, this gets, I guess, pretty, it's self-serving if it's not integrated with the whole. So in the sense of like, we in the West have been running around and doing all those fun things and having a blast for the past 20 years, but it's actually not been serving like the rest of the space. It's not been serving the rest of the countries. We've been kind of going to abuse some of those things. So it's like,
yeah,
that will come back to bite us, right? Like in the sense, like pride comes before a fall. And so like if we're all going off and trying to live that life without taking acknowledgement of these other avenues of life and these other spaces in life, because that's not all life is, right? Our life is about a lot of other things as well. And so I think success for me now, and what I'm seeing a lot of Instagram and TikTok and these doorways that are opening in it, is the fact that, and I think this is a lot of where this conversation has stemmed from for you and I, is just the fact that like it now has become a platform where there's so much media saturation that it's really hard to make it via just posting travel, like all the sort of like just beautiful images content. Not that it's hard to make it, it's not hard to make it, but like in the sense of like there's so much coming at us that it's hard to keep up as a creator visually with all of the information that's coming at us. And so now what I've noticed is the fact that Instagram and TikTok are really easy places to come out and to express yourself and to show your different ideas and to show different ways of how you are as a person, instead of just you as a photographer, you as an artist, or you as a musician, or you as that creative. All of those are obviously avenues of it, and you want to bring those to the table, but there's also this other opening of like, how else can you open up what you want to share, the ideas that you have, the passions that you have in a different way. And I think that that's a really beautiful tangent to be down as creatives, because that will just continue to open you in your own process with yourself as a creator, in that relationship internally of just like, what do you have to share? What do you have to say? I just see so many Instagrammers and TikTokers and people who are just talking. They're just talking and they're just sharing their ideas, and they're just sharing like what they're passionate about, what they're excited about. And they got 400K followers, you know, and are like living a life now and can go do the things of like, oh, I can go to Hawaii and live out there for 3 months and make my money. That's amazing. Like, I'm so happy to be able to do that. Like there's these other avenues of freedom, and that's coming from a different place. It's not coming from a place of like, like I'm finally getting to go to Hawaii because I finally made the clout and I'm finally up. It's like, actually, no, I just got on my soapbox and just started talking. And obviously there's there's so much gray area here in the sense of how many people are doing it, who's how, you know, But I think that that's a cool way to kind of measure and look at what success can look like now. In the sense of like how you can be showing up in an authentic way online, and how that can both feed your audience and also feed yourself. And I think that's the key, is just like, how are you feeding both? And most importantly, how are you feeding you first? Because so many of the people who make it, you know, you hear the burnout stories, you hear the drama stories, you hear the stories of people not being like super integrated or authentic with themselves and their brand online, but with their personal life behind the scenes. Like, how can you kind of merge those and not be sharing everything about your personal life, obviously, but how can you merge those and be like more authentic and more showing up in a way of just like, yo, this is what's real for me right now, going through something, or hey, this is amazing, I'm super happy to be here, super thankful for y'all. You know what I mean? Like showing up in that more authentic and grounded way. And I think that's a cool thing that the algorithm has brought us in this oversaturation of media content. Because you can kind of open that door to your own inner dialogue in a different way.
So I have a question that kind of follows up on that is, I don't have to phrase this properly, but is it superficial to chase superficial and material reality if you're intentional about it? So, like, is it okay to want to do
Dean, we are deep in it today.
The tropical travel yacht, super mega rich lifestyle if you're like, oh, that's actually what I want to be doing with my life, and like I'm intentional about chasing those goals down?
I mean, again, I think it's where's that intentionality coming from? Is that intentionality coming from a place of like, I want to be intentional about this because that's just the life I want to live and the life I want to experience, and like I'm going to walk over everybody to get there? Or is it like, that's always been a dream of mine, I've always wanted to do that, and how can I build enough service in my, this is the big thing I keep coming back to, how can I build enough service in my life to offer things that bring an enormous amount of value to people, so that way I can be in service, but also be in excitement for the opportunities that service brings to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a huge aspect of that component. I think, yes, like, yeah, run it. Go live on your yacht. Go live on your fucking whatever you want to experience in the sense of like Tahiti or Hawaii or whatever.
Yeah.
But where is it coming from in the sense of how you're getting there? Are you having to walk over people and be disrespectful to people and be to get to that successful place? Or are you really finding
lifting up your community and your world
and yourself? Like, what are you finding within yourself that you have to bring to this space and to bring to the table that you can really offer in a way that feels beneficial and supportive? I mean, this is a big question that I'm navigating right now. It's like, what am I in service to? Mm-hmm. What am I in service to, and what story am I in service to, and what am I sharing to the space that can be of value and can be of something that can land for people? Because like, I want to live on boats and stuff like that. I think we should all really acknowledge that we need to be coming together in a collective way to be of service to one another right now and where we're at in history. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big conversation and will continue to get bigger over the next 10, 20 years. And how can we be in service of one another to help unify around moving the planet into a healthier place, instead of just being like, I'm just going to go live this solo life and be on yachts and da-da-da-da-da. Like, definitely, yeah, like, run it. If that opportunity comes to you, like, don't push it away. But how can we also be in this awareness of, like, how are we helping and how are we in service to where we're at as a species on the planet right now? I think that's going to become increasingly important, especially as creators, of how we're sharing and telling that story.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like service is a really big part of success for you, your definition of success.
Yeah, does that land for you? Like, how does that track for your system? I've always seen it as that, and it's funny how, like, I think I've gotten away from that in a lot of ways. I think I got sucked into, like, being like, oh, like, my brand and me and Jackson and that kind of thing. And I kind of got lost in the service track of things, and I kind of lost touch with just, I got sucked into the algorithm of just like, I'm going to post because I got to post because I got to get traction, versus like, I'm going to post because I got something to say. I'm going to post because I got an idea I want to share. I want to post because something has transformed my life, and how can I? Yeah. How do you see it? How would you define that kind of relationship?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I've never thought about it as deeply until recently, like how much of a role service plays in success and in fulfillment of life. And like, I've even just shifted my thoughts on how I approach business now, in the sense where I want to try and help my clients, whoever I'm like working for or trying to help. I want to do what's best for them and their business and their interests, and not just force what I can do for them, basically. So if I'm not the best fit for this person, then I need to say that. I'm not going to try and sell you something that you don't need or don't want or doesn't actually work for your business. So I'm trying to change my perspective on how I approach, quote unquote, selling to people, and actually trying to help them figure out what their problem is before I'm just like, hey, you need social media. And I'm like, no, well, maybe they don't. Maybe first of all, maybe they don't have the money. Second of all, maybe they are a super high-end luxury company that their clients aren't even on social media, or their clients are all 70 years and older. So why would they need social media? Like, why does it matter? So it's not just like, it's just changing the mindset of like, oh, how can I serve you and your business, or you and you as a person, and helping you achieve your goals, instead of just trying to serve my agenda,
make a buck.
Because like, by helping that person get to their goals, that serves me. Like, it's going to serve me in like, I don't know. Well,
and then there's no reason you have to force it. Like, in the sense of like, oh, like, if this doesn't make sense and if this isn't aligned, like, bet, like, let's not waste any more time. Like, have a great day and like, be good on your journey.
Yeah.
Like that's something I've been really tapping into with the solar sales that I've been getting into with, like, we're like calling it house hunting. It's like, if this doesn't make sense for you, like, we're not trying to sell you anything.
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But it's like when it does and when it clicks in and when it locks in, it's like, perfect, here you go. Here's the service. Here's the offering.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like, even if you're recommending, like you say, oh, this doesn't work for you right now, I can actually recommend some people that can do this job for you or will help your business or your life or whatever it is. Here, go speak to them. And you know what? If they speak to them, they do a good job for them. That person that you referred is going to be super thankful and almost feel indebted to you. And so when they have something that comes along and they can't do it, they'll be like, oh, I know this guy.
It's like credibility.
So it comes back around when you're serving people and you aren't trying to make it about you and your thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's like karma. It's like you're giving out good energy, or you're giving out needy and attached energy. And when you're giving out that attached energy of like, I need this sale, I need your clientele, I need you. It's like creating this friction in the dynamic of like, I'm actually not here to serve you, I'm here for me. And then the client can kind of feel that, and they're like, well, blah, 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 this doesn't make as much sense. And so it misaligns like how the creativity is showing up and how the intentionality of it's all showing up. And it's like there are these laws of business, there's these laws of how we interact with one another, there's these laws of communication. And it's really, it's so funny how this conversation continues to get back to like some really fundamental stuff within how you show up for people. And that's really all it is. It's just like there's these basic, like, there's values, or there's things that we show up in, there's stories we tell, and how can we like be in integrity in how we're showing up for clients, for ourselves, and for our creative muscles. And I'm just like, so that if more people could tap into that for themselves, and more people could find that integrity within their creativity and ground themselves in that versus the clout that they can get through what social media and the algorithm has made possible for us, that intention would transform this. Yeah. And it would transform the whole algorithmic system of it all. It would take time, and it would take its, whatever, but it would be switch cool how it would show up.
It would be cool if clout was almost redefined as like how much value and service you gave to other people, instead of just how many what the number is on your profile. Because like there's so many accounts nowadays that have massive followings, but they'll get like no engagements on their posts, and like they aren't helping anyone. It doesn't really contribute to the world in any way, but yet they have this number next to their name, and that gives them so many opportunities and access into certain things when they aren't really like helping anything or anyone.
It's self-serving.
But then again, like on the other side of things, there might be people that have really low numbers next to their name, but they are providing so much value, they're in so much service, and the people that they are connecting with, those connections are so much deeper and so much more meaningful, and that's going to serve them. It's going to serve the creator and the consumer so much more. It's going to be such a mutually beneficial relationship. It's kind of like that 1,000 true fans concept. Like, have you heard of that?
Yep. Like 1,000 true fans is far more than like 10,000 false ones.
Well, yeah, you only need
whatever it was.
So, the theory is that you only need 1,000 true fans to live a very happy, successful life and like have a sustainable career. Because if you have 1,000 people that give you $100 a year, like say you sell a product for $100 a year, or you have like a Patreon where it's, I don't know, $10 a month, and you're making $120 a year. If you have 1,000 people that are dedicated to you, you're going to be making $100,000 to $120,000 a year, and like that's all you need, really. So anyway, it's just the idea that like you don't need to chase massive numbers. You actually just need 1,000 people that really back you and support you. So if you can foster those relationships, that's going to help you be successful financially.
Totally. And then it just brings you back. And it just brings you, like, to create those 1,000 true fans, that brings you back to your integrity of the service that you're bringing to the table. Like, it brings you back to that conversation of, like, what do you have to offer and what do you have to say? And, like, it brings you into that relationship with yourself. Yeah. Because you have to find that. If you want 1,000 true fans, to find the true resonance of it, you kind of have to find that truth within whatever you're bringing to the table.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to get back to your future vision. So what it sounded like was you would like to have a studio. Is that like a physical space?
I don't know if it wants to be a physical space. Like, yes, I want to have access to physical spaces, but how I'm envisioning it is like, because I feel like there's these studios already popping up with you and with a couple other friends of mine in Denver, with two or three different people who are like, they don't have context of one another, but I have context of them, kind of thing, and they're all spinning these ideas around as well, of just like, well, we could create this studio and we could do films like this and this and this. And so I'm really recognizing that my system is moving towards a role of production and producing, in the sense of like, I'm like, oh, like I really feel called to this producing thing. I like the creating, I like to create, but I actually have a much better and more easeful time of just like holding the bigger vision, getting the right people involved, getting the right systems involved, getting the right creators
you don't
involved
need
to create
specifically be filming it or editing it.
Yeah, not to say that I wouldn't enjoy parts and aspects of that, or the editing. You know, I really like editing. I could really be involved with the writing part of things. But how can I help build this web and bring people together in that way? And so I think from a studio perspective, for me, of just like, it would be really cool to have a studio space for sure that I could operate out of and do my own business and personal like photography stuff and but also a space and a hub that people, and either that's just something that I own or I am collectively a part of, but a hub that people can come to, and we can really create this kind of container, this egg of creativity, and all the different creatives who can come into it can be the idea generators and the things that want to be birthed, and like they bring the ideas that want to be expanded and shared, and kind of create this like Robin Hood and his merry men kind of vibe of like how creativity is rolling and how creativity runs in that space, because it comes from an intentional space. So instead of like, hey, we're all together because we're all trying to get clout, it's like, yeah, we're all together because we're trying to create these intentional stories, and we fucking believe in something and we have something to say, and like creating that vortex. And I think more and more creatives are moving to that direction. I like, it's not just something that like you and I are tapped into. I think most creatives are really understanding this. But helping to create that vision and helping to create that kind of portal and that foundation, so that more of us can tap into it, more of us can hear about it, more stories can be shared in a authenticity and an intentional way.
Yeah, I love that. So I just want to explain to people listening right now what I'm doing. So earlier in the podcast, I asked Jackson what his ideal vision of the future looked like as a creative. And what I'm trying to get to right now is how to actually measure the success of that vision, and like what are the specific things that need to happen for him to be like, okay, I've done this thing. So for example, like he mentioned studio space earlier, now I just asked him like, what does that look like? So it's getting very specific to the why, to the even clearer vision of like, okay, now when he has the space that's a hub for creatives, not necessarily like everyone's working at the same company or whatever, but a space that people can come together, that's the metric for success. When that materializes in the world someday, he can be like, cool, got that, that's checked off the list, that's a measure of success for me as a creative. The next one was travel and adventure. So like, is that part of your job? Like, you want to be traveling and adventuring as part of the shoots that you're doing? Or is that like vacation days traveling, or both? Or like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it just wants to be paid time off.
Okay, no, that's fair enough then. No,
yes and no.
Be specific about that if that is what you want.
How I'm seeing it is the fact is this space of like, there's this hub. That's my base, that's my center in the sense of where I'm operating out of. And then again, I'm working with these stories, I'm working with these creatives, I'm working with these visions, I'm working with these I don't want to use social media words. I want to use ideas and practical missions that are happening globally, and going to travel and tell those stories, going to travel and share that vision and share that message, and then tag on traveling, or you know, the traveling to that space would be the traveling experience, and how it would go and how it would experience and feel.
So how many times a year are you doing that in your studio? How many projects a year are you going out to film internationally?
I mean, I think that kind of just depends on. I love the desire to be clear on these on this.
I'm just painting a picture.
I think 5 to 6 really good ones, like really good, solid trips, solid stories would be great. I don't want to go on like 10 or 12 mediocre ones kind of thing. I'd rather do less with real intentionality and with real stories, like the LIB trip that I just did earlier this year, and the documentary we made out of that was like one of those 5, quote unquote, in the sense of like that was such a cool and beautiful story and documentary that came out of that experience that I got to be part of and helped vision and create and co-create. But it was like a week-long thing. Like I was gone for a week and then was back. But that was just like the story and the creativity that came out of that was so impactful to me and impactful to the people who've seen it so far. Yeah. And the people we were recording, that it was just like, wow, like this is the level of integrity that I want to show up in. So yeah, 4 or 5 trips like that. And then, you know, when I'm not on trips like that, I'm really grounded and at home. And then maybe 1 or 2 trips a year where it's just me and some homies and we're just going to shoot and just kind of have a good time and hang around / go do some work somewhere that's like not creative in the traditional sense of like photography, videography, but it's like going to work on a farm or like whatever. Yeah,
that sounds awesome. So the next one is aligned clients and work. That was a thing that came up for your vision. But like, how would you measure work that's aligned with you?
All of my work is coming from non-creative spaces. All of my expenses are coming from non-creative. So in the sense of all my living expenses do not come from creativity. That's something that I've really locked in on recently. Okay, where it's like, so I want to develop. I want to develop enough skill in business and salesmanship and in really grounded, practical
services.
Really grounded, practical skills, whether that be like real estate, salesmanship of some sort, like that. Like, I can feel it. I can look at it and be like, this is legally that kind of thing. So that's something that's really been shifting for me recently, and that's I mean, it's kind of like I'm beginning a whole new creative endeavor in that, because it's like, okay, cool, like that's not gonna happen just like next year. That's like 3-4 years out at least, of just like putting that work in and putting that focus in to develop those skills, to figure out what those skills need to look like to reach those connections, that kind of thing. But it's, you know, building both of these aspects of it at the same time. And I won't not be using creativity to make some money. I did a shoot last night and made a good chunk of money for that, you know. Both of them will work hand in hand, but the reason I'm wanting to go into that direction is because of the ease that it would leave for the creative stories I want to tell. So in the sense of like creating expenses covered via these other elements, it would relieve the creativity to do whatever it wants to do. And I can still make money there, but it's its own entity. So, and also...
So it sounds like it's not necessarily. It sounds like it's not necessarily that you don't want to make income from creativity. It's that you want to cover your base expenses with work that's not reliant on creativity. Yeah.
I don't want to feel dependent upon the creative energy in my system to pay my bills. Not to say that it can't, not to say that it hasn't, not to say that it won't, but in my experience of it, there's like this part of me that wants to protect that creative energy within my system and not have to go do things that I don't feel aligned with creatively, because that feels different. Like I will go do whatever I need to go do for work and make money, kind of thing. I don't want to go do whatever I need to go do to work and make money via my creative portals and my creative action. That feels a little bit more pure, and that feels a little bit more like something I need to protect and like maintain that youthfulness around it, honestly, or that inspirational
So in an ideal world, would you want to, or could you see yourself fully making income from creativity if it was your full-time job and every client was aligned? No.
I don't like want to, like, yes, but also no. I want to be able to have the space to give space. I don't want to just be pushing constantly, even if it is constantly aligned. I don't want to be back to back to back to back to back shoot. Not to say that that wouldn't be dope if it was all aligned content and footage, and if and when I can find that pocket of flow, yes. Like if I can be in a pocket of flow where like my income is all coming through, I don't actually need the work that's at my disposal, but it's just like I'm so passionate about it, and I'm just like so in the focus of like, yes, this is what we want, the story we want to tell. Like that at the end of the day is the vision, like the creating that flow space of just being able to tell the stories that I want to be aligned with.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and maybe this is a story I need to let go of, but I don't think that I operate well in that flow space if I'm reliant on the money I'm getting out of that creative project. Even if it's paying the bills and it's doing all the things it needs to do and it's plenty of money and it's, even if that, I think it does something different in my system creatively. And the other part of this too is just like from a practical sense, like I want to develop other skills as a masculine entity on the planet. Like I don't want to just be reliant on my artistic self to be making my money. I want to be reliant on the business elements and the ways I can think and the ways that I can speak and talk and articulate and sell, and or work, like doing construction or building and that kind of thing. Helping people build like more practical ways of living, that kind of thing. Like there's just a desire and a passion and a creative spark in my system to develop those skills as well. Yeah, which is exciting to me.
Yeah, so it sounds like creative success is not linked to money at all for you, which is great.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, my like in the sense of like how I view my creative success, like that LIB trip. I didn't make any money off that trip, but it's one of my favorite things I've ever gotten to work on. I like saw that film and I was just like, this is the kind of work I could do for the rest of my life and be super happy to do. Yeah, I didn't make any money on it. I spent money on it, like lost money on that trip. You know what I mean? But it was just like creatively, I was just like, yes, like this is so. I was so in the flow of that expression and was just like in a full fuck yes for that. That story to get told the way it got told. Yeah. And I think that is like something that comes from honestly my Christian background and the fact that my parents were both very embedded in, reading and stories and stuff. They were so embedded in like, you have to be reading, you have to be intelligent, you have to be able to think. And so I just developed this really deep sense of like authenticity and truth in characters and in story and in how people were showing up and in how stories were told. And that's really where my anchor's always been. Like I've always kind of like had one foot in the creative world, but also a foot out of it. Like I've not actually ever been fully like a committed yes to a lot of the ways that creativity has flown. And that's both served me and not served me in a lot of ways. But really craving that feeling and that sense of like, yes, this is an authenticity and this is an authentic truth. Yeah. And I think money clouds that in a lot of ways, and clouds that in a lot of ways. Not that it can't have those aspects with it, but typically.
So the next one was passive income. So I guess this kind of links to this last point as well, as like income not from creative. But yeah, like what kind of passive income goals are you looking for on that side?
These are great questions right now because this is all the stuff that I'm like really simmering in right now. Long-term vision, I want to get into real estate. Long-term vision, I want to be in buying and selling land. And that would generate passive income in the sense of if I'm renting things or if I'm having an event space or if I'm having, some sort of like practical space where people can come rent out, that kind of thing. And I'm not fully clear on this yet. I'm not fully clear on exactly how this looks, exactly how this feels, exactly how this works. But what I am intuitively sensing is tapping into markets that are going to go up in the next 10, 20 years. There's going to be a lot of markets that are going to go down, and there's going to be a lot of markets that are going to skyrocket, that are going to go through the roof. And so which wave and which waves can I tap into and ride and basically develop systems in to create passive income streams as that wave goes up. And that's going to be, again, there's not a whole lot of clarity around what those waves will look like. Right now I'm jumping into the solar world, which feels like it can be a lucrative space, but it also feels like there's a lot of red tape that people got to cut through to be in that space. So I don't know if it'll be a long-term thing. I think it's a great place to be working muscles and working salesmanship and that kind of thing, and have access to, if I run into somebody or if people are on my page or are curious about solar, I can easily sell them something and get them some access to like some really high quality / cheap / affordable panels for their homes. But and again, it's just like, that's like a funnel, right? It's a funnel I'm developing. I'm going to take a year to develop that funnel, create some more bigger streams of income, continue to watch the market, figure out where market money is moving. So creating these different funnels to create the passive income stream. So learning how to trade in the stock market, selling in streams of waves that are going to go up in the next coming years. Like solar is going to go through the roof in a lot of ways. If the politics can keep it focused. And then those funnels will turn into real estate funnels. And I'm actually even studying a lot of different ways to create. Well, we don't have to get into all that. It's kind of another podcast.
Yeah. Well, I guess
that's the vision in the sense of the passive income. It's like really practical, like grounded stuff of like, how do you get more clean energy for yourself / free energy for yourself that's integrated into your own system. Sovereignty. Like, how can I sell sovereignty to people and sovereign systems to people? Whether that's even like showing up to their place and like remodeling it, redoing it, creating regenerative rainwater systems, composting systems, farm systems, in small spaces, that kind of thing. Because that's just going to become something that's increasingly more and more practical and more just amazing to have and nice to have those systems in place.
I don't know if you said this, my AirPods disconnected for a second, so I just missed like a couple seconds, but did you say a number at all?
For the passive income?
Yeah.
My goal right now, the next 2 years, the next year and a half, is to make 6 figures, and then at least hit the first 6 figure mark, and then within the next 3 to 4 years, $500,000, and then after that, be putting it into systems that are just generating 6 figures on its own and 6 figures to make it passive. And for those streams to just be happening and flowing. And that's why, again, like I'm taking a step back from creativity, because I'm like, these are systems that I have to learn. Just like I had to learn the creative system and learn the creative system in a lot of ways. Like, how can I learn these systems that are big money, like bigger energy, but it's still just a system that I have to learn. Yeah. Just like the creativity was a system. Like, how can I learn these systems, tap into these systems, focus my energy here, and then that creativity can come around on the back end. And
so let's say $10,000 a month from passive income. Is that like a good number to put on that?
Yeah, that feels great. For now. 10,000. I mean, even less than that would be ideal for me. I mean, even 5,000 over the next 2 years would be amazing. In the sense of the goal, in the sense of the vision, 10,000 feels like a good solid number to be sitting in and to be grounded in.
So I feel like that feels like a really good number to go from, and once you hit that number, that's kind of like you're set for life in a way. If you're hitting $10,000 a month consistently, and then the last one was service. Like, how would you even measure service? Is it like how many people you're helping a year? Is there a specific number in your mind? Is there a specific like amount of videos that you're putting out there to help people? Like, how do you define the success of service? Is that just something you feel?
That's a whole podcast right there.
For sure.
I think it is something you feel. And how I feel like I would define it would be it feels very like hard to define something like that, but something to do with impact and how my offerings are impacting people. So in the sense of like, if I'm developing skills and developing a business that helps people live in a more sovereign way and live in a more, connected to themselves and connected into their own ways of generating stability for themselves, that would feel of service and really feel successful to me. If that was how it was landing, if that was how it was being offered. I don't know how to
quantify that.
Quantify that in the sense of I help one person do that, I feel successful. You know what I mean? I help 100 people do that, I feel successful. I help 1,000 people do I feel successful. It's not something that is quantifiable in the sense of numbers anymore. It's just quantifiable in the sense of that feeling that you're talking about, of it might just be a feeling. I think it is in that way, of just I know that I showed up in integrity in that.
Yeah.
And that feels successful to me, and that feels abundant to me, and that feels like really good energy that I put out into the world that I know will come back to me.
It's carrying on that discipline as well of continually practicing being of service.
Yeah, because it never stops. There is no end to that story. It's just I will continue to do this. As soon as I get done with this project, it's beautiful. What's next? And not from a place of just overworking, but from a place of wow, I'm excited to help the next person find their way through this and navigate their way into this.
So even if that's one person a year that you set up solo for them, or a composting system or something, that's a metric to be had right there. I want to help one person a year with something that makes their life better.
Totally.
That could be a metric for success, and sure, it's a low number, but also it's not, because if you think about you can't even put a value on a human life and helping a human life.
Right. Yeah, there's no...
So it doesn't have to be I need to help 10,000 people this year. It's no, one person a year can make you feel fulfilled. So again, for people listening, these numbers don't have to be high. Even for passive income, if you wanted $500 a month, I mean, even that's high for some people in a lot of the parts of the world. But it's that could be your definition of success, where you get to $500 a month and you're cool, I'm good, I'm chilling. And then you can sit in that and be grateful for that and be cool, I'm successful as a creative. And then you create your own standards for success instead of unconsciously following the standards of success that are out there in society. And then you can be super happy and content with where you are in your journey. And then from there, you can choose to reevaluate and set new goals and move forward even more if you want to. But it all comes back defining your own journey.
Yeah, and it comes back down to how does it feel in your gut? How does it feel in your system? Does it feel like it is serving you and serving others? And that's your metric of success, and that's how you show up in success in that space. Versus what does it look like on paper? That kind of thing.
Well, I think it's a combination of those two as well. I'm trying to get really specific about it, just so that you can get this detailed about creating a plan for yourself, so that, because one of the issues with success is that it never seems attainable, and people don't realize when they are successful. And so by creating these almost boundaries or checkpoints, you can actually recognize that you are successful at what you do, instead of just continually chasing something that doesn't align with you or doesn't make sense to you. So success doesn't even have to be that far away for some people. For some people, creative success just looks like being able to do a watercolor painting at the end of their workday, and that's enough.
And run it.
And so get clear about that. Success doesn't mean being famous on social media. It doesn't mean getting a big following. It doesn't mean having a studio or traveling to do massive creative trips. It can mean something as simple as drawing once a day.
Drawing with your kids, drawing with your partner.
So this podcast is really just an exercise to get super clear on what success looks like for you. So thank you for sharing all that.
Thanks for asking those questions. I didn't expect to just be able to go into my own process about all those sorts of things, but it feels good, and it feels in reflection, it feels really nice to be working those muscles to find that clarity. And I think that's a super important part of this process, and finding out what and why you're creating and where it's coming from. And that clarity, like you're saying, and like you're speaking to, is super important, and being specific about it is essential.
Yeah. Because now you know that, like, even your passive income goal, that's not linked, like, that's a goal of yours, but it's not linked to creativity. So it's like that actually isn't even a metric or a measure of success for your creativity. So you could like take that out completely. So for you, it's more about like having the creative hub and like connecting with other creatives. It's about like going to travel and do creative projects that really align with you and being of service to people. Like money isn't part of that, which is great. And now you know that.
Yep. And getting that clarity around that, because I think that's always been real for me, but I haven't actually been clear on that in the past, and haven't known how to be clear on that in the past. Yeah. Which feels great to feel we tapping into that now. Yeah.
I'll send you a bill for the therapy session.
Yeah, literally. Like I say, we'll have to do to you next
creative
week.
Therapy. Yeah, actually. I mean, again, mine is super similar to yours. Like, even, I mean, I can see myself making money from creativity, like a good amount of money. But at the same time, I also do want the external source of income, and that I'm working on building my own like real estate and like rental property system. And like I have one Airbnb in Cape Town, so like I'm working on that.
You're definitely on that track.
Yeah, so we're like kind of in the same line again, which is like why we connect and why we are aligned on a lot of the same things. But yeah, mine honestly looks very similar to yours in a lot of ways. So
yeah,
that was cool.
We can dig into something else next time. Yeah, that was awesome.
Sweet.
That felt really nice. It felt really nice to not be in the whole, like, we're just talking about social media conversation. It's on the creativity side of it.
I think it's cool, and I think it would be nice in the future to do more intentional creator episodes that's not linked to social media and the internet specifically.
Yeah. It's a separate thing, actually.
Yeah. Well, it is. Like, we can even speak about like creativity of like being a landscaper or like other art forms that aren't digital. Or totally. linked to social media, like sculpture or landscaping or like I don't know. I just there's so much else out there that's like you can be an intentional creator about that's not social media. Like that's the base of our conversations. But anyway, I'm rambling now. Cool. I'm happy with that podcast. I feel great. Do you have anything else to add?
I feel great about it. No, it feels awesome, and I'm appreciating the questions and the clarity that came through, and I think that's an important part of this whole dialogue.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for listening, everyone that did choose to listen. We always appreciate it. We're trying to get back on the schedule again and make this more of a consistent thing and check in once a week. Thanks for listening. If you liked it, do all the ratings and subscribings and all that kind of stuff. Tell somebody you love how cool this podcast is.
Share it if you resonate with it. Share it.
Say hi on social media. Feel free to DM me or Jackson or the Intentional Creator podcast. We'd love to just start more conversations. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Cheers, y'all.